Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back to the show. We are proud and excited to have our guest with us today, Michael Timothy Bean, joining us here from beautiful Berkeley, California. Soul expression. I know we're going to talk about that because he's a psycho-spiritual counselor and so much more. We're going to talk about all his energy healing modalities and, of course, his practice. Soul-expression.com is the website. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm doing quite well. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
Pleasure having you here. So excited to talk about you and the work you do. Would you mind giving us an introduction as to who you are? And then we'll get right into, of course, what you do.
Absolutely. My name is Michael Timothy Bean, and I call myself a psycho-spiritual counselor. I mixed straight up coaching and talk therapy with energy work and energy healing. And the idea is to give people the opportunity to go internally and to symbolically represent their real life stuff. And we turn them into metaphorical things that we can work with in service to their personal growth. And so that's how I like
Beautiful.
to explain it. Yeah.
Great. And off the top, I also mentioned the website, soul-expression.com. Do you also have another form of contact for our listeners? Do you want to give out a phone number, social media page, email?
Sure, happily. You can find me on Instagram as Intuographer, Intuographer. That's related to my art practice, which is totally related to my energy work.
Could you spell that one more time?
Intuographer, Intuographer.
Perfect. Thank you. I like that.
Photography, and I'm
Wow.
yeah. And 606 818. Oh, I'm sorry, 510-616. No, let me get it right.
That's okay. I want to make sure it's right.
510-606-8118. 510-606-8118 is my phone number. You can leave a text or a telephone message, and I'll get back to you ASAP.
Great.
And then last but not least, Michael at soul-expression.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So also let's start off by talking a little bit about the work you do, energy healing. How type of energy healing? Because I know you also deal with the coaching and the working with couples. So where did you want to begin?
Great. Yeah, let's talk with the energy healing. Let's talk about energy healing, the one-on-one stuff that I do.
Okay.
So yeah, like I was saying before, it's all about creating a symbolic representation of real life stuff, one thing at a time, and providing my clients an opportunity to dig into themselves a little bit using this symbolic sight that everybody has. And you can also call symbolic sight intuitive impressions, your intuition, the way you receive information. There's a lot of ways to describe it. The simple way for me is see, sense, feel, and know.
That's like the clairvoyance,
exactly.
Explain that. Yep.
Yeah, not everybody has the same clairs, right? There are all kinds. There's clairsentience, clairaudience, clairsmelliance.
Is that what it's called? Yeah, something like that. I don't know the smell one.
And so the see, sense, feel, know kind of covers all of them in a way, right? So not everybody sees images in their mind as they close their eyes. That's the main thing. Some people I've learned when working with them, I would encourage them to say something like, have a look at or see this particular scene, see a beach scene or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't see like that. All right, well, what's it like to feel yourself at a space that's like that, right? So try and find out ways and try and use language in a way that is conducive of the way in which an individual person actually receives their intuitive information and hits.
Awesome. Whoa. So how does this work? Can you tell me about yourself? Were you born an empath and intuitive? Could you share a little bit about your story and journey that brought you here? I think it's important for us to get to know you. This is
all right. It's kind of a convoluted story, but I'll share it.
Aww.
The first thing is when I was a child and being introduced to various cousins and new babies in the family or in the world, I always had the desire to touch the baby's head.
Really? Okay.
And when I did, I would always get flashes of their future, what kind of person they would be, or, just some kind of impression. I didn't know what to do with it at that time, but I always remember just dropping into this place, being totally present and calm in the presence of a baby with my hand gently on their head, brand new kid. And just, I would receive information about them. I never really thought much about it until later in life.
So you never told anyone? You didn't tell the cousin or the
No,
aunt or just you felt
no,
it. Okay.
it was just a felt sense, nothing I
Okay.
ever
Okay.
really acknowledged until looking back on it
Mm-hmm.
after learning about the things that I know how to do now. Um, but I got into this. It's kind of a wacky story, but a person I was seeing at the time that just prior to the time that I just started learning about this stuff came back from a trip to New Orleans with some massage oil from the vault of Marie Laveau, an ancient or a 19 or 1700s New Orleans area famous voodoo priestess, right?
Okay.
And I remember sitting with her, and she rubbed this oil on my wrists one evening we were hanging out together, and I was thinking, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "Don't worry about it," right? And then later and along in our relationship, she said, "Hey, why are you still with me?" I'm like, "I'm not sure. What are you talking about?" "Well, I wanted to let you know, I put a voodoo spell on you with that love oil that I talked to that I rubbed into your wrist a while back, and it's been a year, and I'm making sure that we're still all right." And I'm like, "What? You put a love spell on me?"
Oh my gosh. Wait.
And so I was compelled to then figure out what the story was, what happened and what my experience was, and I began to doubt whether or not my feelings were real and all this other stuff. And so I went to this school and learned through a person I know there about a technique to um, release myself of the spell. And I had this experience where I got the oil, I took everything that had come into contact with it, buried it in the ground at the water's edge on San Francisco Bay, where I live, and intended for the spell to be released, giving it back to the earth and the world and the universe or whatever, and stood up, took a deep breath, and as soon as I stood up, everything around me went silent. A little whirlwind of wind came
Wow.
through, and the water came up and over the stuff and buried it even more. And I just thought, holy smokes, there's something to this. And so later that night, I went to the introduction to that school, and somebody came up to me afterward and said, "Hey, something big happened to you today." And I'm like, "Wow, yeah, you're right. I released a voodoo spell upon me."
Whoa.
And we had a nice conversation. She did a little energy healing, and then the next thing I knew, I was, headlong in this program, and
Amazing. And
learned all about this
just to
work.
point out, hold on. So your friend, right? So was
Mhm.
it really just a love spell? She do it on purpose, or did you guys really love each other? Just curious, because that
It was both.
okay. But then in
So
the end, you're like, wait, she put a spell. So is it real? Is it not? Oh my
right,
gosh. Oh my
right. So that's
goodness.
that's the straight up intro to my world in this stuff, right?
So, okay, and just curious now, those babies that you've touched when they were younger and in your head, their mind, their
Mhm.
fruition, what was going to happen, how are they now?
Good
Did those
question.
flashes go? Do you know some of them still? Obviously,
Yeah,
family
yeah,
and
sure.
friends. Did it kind of work
Um,
out to what you thought, or
yeah. So nothing's come to me about that. I haven't really connected my experience then to now, so I'm gonna have
okay?
to drop into that a
But we
little
could
bit
do
more.
that
But
another show for sure.
yeah, that would
Okay,
be good.
good to know. But
That's a
let's
great
talk more
question,
then
though.
about
Let's
the energy
consider that.
healing that you're doing and the symbolic site work you're doing, and then get to the couples aspect of how you can help someone. There's so much to
Great.
you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Um, so yeah, I thought I would share with you a little bit about how a session goes with me.
Sure. Perfect.
And so it always starts with a little conversation about what's going on with a person, get some information about them. I ask for permission, right? Permission is a huge thing. It's an interesting set of tools that one uses when doing this kind of work, and it is very vulnerable for a client to be seen, sensed, felt, to know metaphorically. And there's this aspect of scanning. They're what I
Mm-hmm.
call the mind, body, spirit complex, and so always seek permission. Otherwise, it's out of consent, out of integrity.
Okay.
And so that's the difference between white magic and black magic, if you will. Black magic,
Mm-hmm.
spells
Bells.
for a particular outcome in mind,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily in the highest of integrity, right? Usually is done without consent and intended to manipulate, right? So this work is
Mm-hmm.
not about that. It's all about getting consent, being in a vulnerable space, and allowing oneself to be seen and then shared with what I see, right? And so, for example, if I were to offer a healing to you, I would seek your permission. And then if I were to see something like, I don't know, a pink fuzzy rabbit,
Uh-huh.
right? I would say it, right? So with no attachment or filter from my own sense of being, knowing, sensing, feeling. For myself, it's always see and say, in this particular energy center, I'm seeing blah, 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 right? And you would take that however you would, and I would just continue the process with whatever the intention is. And um, so there are a variety of ways you can do an energy healing, right? You
Yeah.
can, well, actually, let me start with the process, right? So it's
Sure.
always first dropping into a state of present time
Hmm.
awareness, or a state of grounded presence,
Okay.
here in the moment, led through a meditative process that gets somebody through some imagery that allows them to use their own symbolic sight to connect to the earth and to be present in the moment and immediately aware of all the things that are in their surroundings in a way that they hadn't been before. So it's
Yeah.
amazing when you drop into that space, sounds
Right.
sounds get louder.
Yeah.
You hear birds chirping or other creaks and pops of the
Hmm.
house, things you just hadn't really recognized before because you're spinning somewhere else. So
Yeah.
we always get grounded. And then I ask for permission. And then we have the user say, or the person say their name 3 times. And I was told once by a teacher of mine that your name is your address to your soul. It's been given to you by your parents. It's connected to ancestry, their preferences, their perception of you before you're born, and all that stuff. So a name has powerful, potent meaning, and you say it 3 times to help yourself check into yourself even more. And the way a person says their name says a lot. If they're saying it with like an inflection in the upward, my name is Michael Timothy
Hi, I'm
Bean.
Jill. When I call, hi, I'm Jill. I think I do a hi, Jill. I don't know what that means. You
Right.
can tell me.
Right. So, if there's a
Jill.
disconnect between the
Okay.
way somebody pronounces their name, it might indicate a disconnect between their perception of themselves, right? And they might not be fully embodied, if you will, with their own energy.
Cool.
And so, you know, the way people speak, the way they behave, the way they present themselves, all gives information about their present energetic state. And we work with that. And the energy healing is all about getting somebody aligned to the present moment in a way that's free and clear of other people's energy. That's a big
Hmm.
one.
Ooh.
Confusion comes a lot from other people's energy. In my parlance, we call it OPE. And OPE, yeah, it ain't me.
Ah, I was gonna say, oh, I started singing in my head. I did guilty.
And so we use some tools to clear ourselves of other people's energy if it's really prevalent. An example that comes to mind is a client that I have. She's in her mid 30s. She's been dating some people, trying to find a partner, trying to figure out what it is that she wants for herself. And there's all these interested dudes in her. And we did this one exercise in a session where we did the current dude fashion show, right? Where we set up a stage in her symbolic size and create a stage, put yourself as the director of your
Yeah.
play and
Yeah.
audience, and invite them all to come up and do a little fashion show. And they all lined up and they were all dressed in different ways. One of them had a cowboy hat and boots and nothing else on. Another one, who was an attorney, came up and was just covered in black and shrouded and indicated to her that he was holding back and not sending messages to her in a clear and concise way, and a variety of other ways. And so it was a fascinating experience to bear witness to that with her, and to see her have this eye-opening experience of looking into deeper the personalities of those people and allow her initial intuitive hits to come in this fashion show.
So
And
we all have this intuitiveness, right? But not everybody knows how to use it
absolutely,
or guide it clearly. And that's why we get so confused and
absolutely,
lost. So you
absolutely,
helped guide her to use her own intuition to
right,
uncover these men, the good, the bad, the naked, the dressed.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And she was able to then, make a
Make her
decision,
own.
discern a little bit, think about it a little more, have more information, or get more information through future interactions with these people, and made choices as a result. It was the first step to help her making choices to verify in the real world, right? You start in
Yeah.
the ethereal, if you will, or the intuitive space, and then use what you see and test it out there. And always grounded, always present. Those two go hand in hand. That grounded skill is the single most important thing to help you become present and aware of yourself in this life. If anything you're going to work on is that get into the present moment state right now. That always starts with that. And none
Yeah.
of that stuff works unless you're there, because without being grounded, you're susceptible to other people's energy. You're susceptible to suggestion. You're susceptible to other people's influence and opinions. And,
Hmm.
it takes you away from your internal self and more into the world of validation from others, or lack of validation from others, and how that sticks. So, yeah,
Interesting.
bouncing around a little bit, but that's
Okay.
essentially how it works. We ground, I see and say, I ask about intention, We look for things that are, getting in the way of that intention and provide a healing container and some metaphorical action, say to clear out an energy center, right? So, for example, I had a client, a young man in his early 30s. He went to a boarding school.
And we have a call coming in. Sorry
Oh,
about that.
great.
Welcome to the show. You are live on the line. Who's this?
Hi, this is Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn. You are live on the line. Just to point that out, say hello and ask any questions, of course, you may have.
Hello, Carolyn.
Hello. So I was calling because I wanted to know, do you offer training on how to do energy work so I can
Yeah,
do it for my family and friends? And how does it work?
absolutely. Absolutely. I do offer training, if you will, as part of one-on-one sessions, right? So part of becoming a person who can do this work is learning about how to, like I was saying, get grounded yourself, and then shedding all of those things that you've been holding with you, and then becoming reborn in a way, and so that you can be readily clear and available for other people in service to them. So I do that as part of my one-on-one interactions, and I actually have an online course that you can take a look at. Also, it's on Teachable, and you can find that at my website, soul-expression.com. And then I also will be in the near future teaching in-person classes that'll be also available over Zoom. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so how does it work?
How does what work in particular?
The energy, like
Oh,
the
okay.
training, the counseling.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, so it's just like I would be giving a healing session with you, right? However, it's all, um, we drop into that space. You have the experience yourself to feel it. And then we come out of it and we talk about your experience and what might be in the way, whether or not you felt it, etc. And share with you various different ways in order to have that same experience, so that you can have real, true experience for yourself, and you can learn how to practice it and work with it for yourself. So it's
Okay,
it's an experiential thing.
yes,
Good. Well,
thank you.
Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much. Like, so right now on the phone, could you pick up her energy? Could you pick up anything from the caller, or did she have to give you like permission? Could you
Oh,
pick anything
well,
up?
well,
Do you
yeah,
mind if we
certainly.
put
I
you on the
did pick up
spot?
things, and I would need permission in order to share what my senses were about her. Yeah, for sure. So I'm not going to go off and say that. The only thing that I can share is that, yeah, I appreciated the question,
Mhm.
and certainly got the sense that there was somebody very interested in learning how to do this stuff, and being of service to her family.
All right. That
Although I
sounds
would
good.
say, though, that the energy work that itself is often challenging to do with family members, just because you're so close to them, and their ingrained patterns about you in your own life could possibly get in the way through skepticism or a change in behavior that you have as a result of learning these new skills. And so sometimes it's a little bit, they're the most challenging people to work with, just because of your own stuff with your own family and perhaps some unhealed things, and their perceptions of you, and perhaps they're getting in the way, maybe pushing some buttons. And so I would encourage people who are
I would
learning
encourage people
to do this work,
to
practice in the beginning with people you don't know, or people who you're learning with, because you're in the same space.
Good. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Yes,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much.
You have
Have
a
a
great
great
day.
day.
Give us a call, please. 631-317-1291. The lines are open. 631-317-1291. And just to remind everyone, we're with Michael Timothy B. and his website, soul-expression.com. Also, would you mind giving out your phone number again?
Yes, 510-606-8118.
And it's Michael at soul-expression.com if you want to reach
Yes.
out to him there. And on Instagram, he is
Intuographer.
Intuographer. Got that. Perfect. And
Yeah.
let's continue the conversation. Again, anyone, you're open to any question, please feel free to give us a call in the meantime. What else about your work do you want to share? That was a great story about that, the woman and the men that you helped her with.
I started talking about a client that I had once, young man in his early 30s, who was having trouble meeting people, had a lot of self-doubt, and really hadn't had the experience of connecting with women in his life. He had been sent to an all-male boarding school in high school, and just the time that he was forming and coming into had no access to members of the opposite sex. And here he is in his 30s and not really knowing what to do. And in a session that we had together, the thing that I noticed, the most thing that came out was a brick wall in front of his heart.
Wow.
I see a brick wall in front of your heart. There's a block there. And so the energetic container and the healing space was I held space for his heart center. And, together we began taking the bricks off the wall.
Hmm.
And so how he saw it, he saw it as, cobwebs coming off of something. And I saw it as bricks coming off the wall. And together we did our parts of slowly taking the bricks off the wall and then, encouraging him to take a chance, right? To use this knowledge that he has this block in front of his heart, and that he's taking some action to free himself from it, to then apply it into the physical world by saying hi to somebody that he likes, or
Mhm.
expressing interest in somebody who he doesn't quite feel comfortable expressing interest to yet, that kind of thing. And, he ended up finding somebody to be in a partnership with. Haven't checked in with him in a while, but it kind of worked for him, and so things like that, right? Again, we take somebody's personal stuff and turn it into some kind of symbolic representation, apply some action to it, and then apply it in the 3D world, right? Take it
Mhm.
out of the mind space, take it out of the ethereal, and bring it all together in your physical expression, right? And so whenever you can add the physical expression to any of this work, it just makes it more and more powerful because it's all together. If you
Got it.
affect the physical body, it's going to affect your mental state and your spiritual state. If you affect your
Yeah.
spiritual state, it's going to affect your mental state and your physical state. They're all interconnected. You treat one, you treat them all. And so, my particular set of skills is in treating the psychospiritual, the mental and the spiritual, and then encouraging people to apply it in a way that makes sense to them physically, like getting out there and dancing, or moving your arms around, or tapping, or other kinds of physical techniques that you can use to match the energetic experience with your physical existence. And so,
Beautiful. And I know you
really fun
mentioned
stuff.
mindfulness is big, right? In our
Oh,
state of mind
absolutely.
and how we think and how that can really help. We can really manifest things in our lives for the most part. I know you mentioned in your notes about being careful, how you speak to yourself, right?
Right. Yeah, that's something we talked about last time. So many people speak to themselves
It's,
in a way that's self-degrading,
yeah.
self-berating,
Hmm.
right? And it's sometimes hard to get over that. This rumination in that space can contribute to a feeling of depression, or ruminating in that space in the future, right? About what might happen, or the fears related to some decision that you've yet to make can cause some anxiety and some rumination over all the things that could possibly go wrong. And so this idea of being kind to oneself, being positive with oneself, is a very good step toward freeing yourself of that kind of negative speech rumination. Now, what I want to say also is that the positive and negative are both real things in our world, right? We live in a dualistic world, and there's always the opposite. Right? And so the idea here is to not land on one end of the spectrum, but to work towards being centered in the middle of it, accepting both the negative and the positive sides of your dualistic nature, or your
Hmm.
polarity, your personal polarity, if you will, and learning how to bring the oscillations between them closer to a center line, right? Where your extreme oscillations with practice of energy work and other kinds of things, using your body, expressing yourself truthfully, clearly through artistic expression, whatever, can bring you from those wild peaks and valleys to a more oscillated, centered space where you're kind of your peaks and valleys are not as high and not as low,
Got
right?
it.
And this idea of a neutral space comes to mind. The word neutral, though, I don't like it because it implies a checked outness. So it's more of this present time awareness of how I'm showing up right now and being able to name it. And once it's named, it's been seen. And once it's been seen, it's been given permission to be transformed, right? And so this idea of permission, seeing, transformation comes into it as well. So
Got
it's
it.
something simple like, I am feeling this way right now, right? For me, it's a little nervous being here with you, a little talky, but I can
No.
see that and I can free myself of it and get into a more grounded space and be more present without those thoughts, right?
I would never
So
know.
it really helps.
Doing great. It's so good as our first Zoomcast here. So we get to see each other also face to face, which I think is important. But the work you do, you don't even need to see someone, right? You could just talk to
No, we can
someone, feel
talk
it,
somebody
like
on the
the
phone.
caller, like on the phone.
Yeah.
So you really work with people everywhere. I know you also work with couples we talked about. And there's so much more to you. We have 3 minutes left in the show. So
Okay,
what else
wow.
did you want to get in for today? And if you're willing in a future show, I'll be open for you to dive into me. I could use
Wow.
help. We all could use help in certain
Right.
areas. So I would love to know what you're picking up on me. But we don't have enough time for that today.
Sure, I would actually very much appreciate that. I was talking to my partner and was saying, maybe sometime down the line, maybe session 4 or 5, Jill would be interested in a little energy healing. And
Well,
so,
you obviously manifested that. And see, I guess we kind of connected
oh
on
yeah,
that
you've
mental
given me
plane.
permission.
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
would be really cool. Okay, so I'd like to end with this idea of the Oracle card deck that I made. Right, I'm going to give it a shameless plug. I talked about that art practice that I had, intuography. I have another website. It's called intuography.com, and that's my gallery where I can show you my art, and I have images for sale, of course. But right now, I have this card deck that I've used. Maybe you can't see it with the image in the background. But the image in the background here, for those of you who will be seeing this in the future, is a picture of me. It's called Third Eye, and it's transformation from an image that I took myself and turned it into this representation of that present time moment. And that's what my art is all about. And then created them into a deck of cards where I can use these oracle purposes. And so in the cards, there's an image, right? Piece of my art taken from the photo of the person, place, or flower or thing that I took the photo of, named it, run the numerology of the name, and then there's a number. And so there's an image, a name, and a number on each card.
Okay.
And so the image itself has meaning. It's got color, it's got flow, it's got shapes. And so we interpret those. Then the impression of the name, my impression of the person whose image that was taken of, and then their impression of their association with that name and what it could possibly mean. And then the number and numerology and what that means. And so we put those all together and give a reading in response to the inquisition or the inquiry about from that person, and go with that. And
Yeah.
so we can put the cards together. They have flow from card to card. It's really fascinating. I love it. I call it
Awesome.
the Deck of Souls, or the Intuography See and Say card deck, and it's good stuff.
All
Yeah,
right.
so it's how I integrate my creative process and my creative expression into this energy work.
Our Intuographer on Instagram. Michael Timothy Bean joining us, soul-expression.com. Any other form of contact you want to leave before we go?
Yeah, hit me up, 510-606-8118. Love to work with you, soul-expression.com. And last but not least, Michael at soulexpression.com. You can send me an email.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, for joining us, occupying our space, and looking forward to the next time we speak, hopefully
Right
again
on,
via
Jill.
Zoom. You have a
Thank
great
you.
day and
Thank you so much,
an
Jill.
even better weekend. Bye-bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.